1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Yeah, Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour.
Welcome to the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. I'm your host, Andreas Werner, record producer, songwriter, composer with a Muscle Shoals soul. And before I get started, I would like to thank you for listening to last week's episode featuring the great Doug MacLeod, where we took a deep dive into the making of his new album, Between Somewhere and Goodbye. And if you haven't heard of it, it's still up everywhere you listen to podcasts, and check out his album out now on Reference Recordings. And while you're listening to music, homemade, heartfelt music, please also do so to Mark Narmore and Funky Chester's album, Keeper of the Flame, that I had the pleasure of producing, co-writing, and playing on. It's always super rewarding to have the music you work on being out there and explored by people like you. I love communicating through music so that there is actually a recipient of that communication is super great. So, but now, without further ado, I would like to jump to today's episode that I'm very excited about, as well as I am joined by another legendary blues and roots music performer. This time, my guest is the great Hans Theessink, one of Europe's preeminent blues man, a man with a soul as deep as the sea. And I got introduced to Hans' music growing up in Switzerland because his music was really readily available around Europe. And how I got introduced to him was because he had some really outstanding musicians playing on his records, like Terry Evans and Bobby King of Cooder's band, or Rick Danko and Garth Hudson of the band, Colin, Linden, Blind Boys of Alabama, or my favorites, the Holmes Brothers. And I believe I bought that first album especially because the Holmes Brothers were on it, and I just love them so much. And in turn, I fell in love with Hans' music. Hans grew up in Holland. He's from Dutch origins, fell in love with American roots music there, eventually emigrated to Austria, and has been living in Vienna and has been a member of the local music community there for a long time now. And we became friends a few years ago. I got introduced to Hans through our mutual friend Mark Stanzler of the Blues Zeppelin radio show. Got to see him perform. We became friends, him and his beautiful wife Milica. And I asked him to be on the podcast, which he didn't turn down. So we sat together a few weeks ago in Switzerland while he was on the road. So let's get to my conversation with the great, the one, the only Hans Theessink. Hans, thank you so much for being my guest today and taking the time to talk to me about your incredible life in music.
Yeah, it's nice being here, and I'm happy to be able to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Usually it's a pretty deep dive, but I'd like to start in the now, just because you might have a few things you'd like to talk about that you're excited about now, something to promote maybe. And you just gave me a copy of your latest record, which is the 75th birthday bash with guests like Eric Bibb and Dana Gillespie, Christian Dostler, Guy Davis. and you're a great band. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about your latest release.
Yeah, well, I have these birthday bash concerts, and I started when I turned 60, and since then I've done it every year, and I invite people that I like to play with, and musical friends, and so we just interact, and it's always a nice thing, and people are really happy to come to the concerts too. So we're always like full houses, and the new one is the 75th birthday bash, which is actually my 75th and 76th. So it's actually 2 years, but I call it 75 just to celebrate that number. Yeah, and it's I think it's a wonderful record. It's bluesy, some of it, and some of it is more like song-like, folky, and yeah, it's a nice album. It's a great live sort of feel.
Yeah, and I actually was there a couple of years ago, and I'm a witness to its beauty, because it's, first of all, it's a really beautiful old theater.
Yeah.
And just that the friendship, and it almost had a little bit of a family reunion type of vibe to it, which I really, really liked.
Yeah, the place we do it is called the Metropole. It's in Vienna, and it's like an old theater, so it has a nice vibe. And then of course to have musical friends coming in, so it's always, there's no egos, and it's a nice sort of musical family kind of situation. Yeah. Which is really, and there's not a lot of rehearsals going on either. So it's some of it is just off the cuff.
Yeah, and that's where some of the magic happens, as we know.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it can go the other way. I know. So something else that happened fairly recently, I think is pretty exciting and great, is Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones. His latest album has 2 of your songs on it, and I'm curious how that came about.
I'm not quite sure. I went to see Bill like a few weeks ago. I had a day off in London, and we met up with him, and I think he just got hold of some of my albums and liked some of the songs, and he did a record called Ride My Car, and he had 2 of my songs on it, so that was quite a surprise for me.
Oh, nice. I thought maybe there was a story that I don't know.
No, he just must have gotten hold of a few albums or something and heard those songs.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a compliment, man, that you didn't even had to hustle it in any way.
No, I wasn't aware of it. He just called us and said, or his management called and said, Bill has recorded 2 of your songs and wanted to know what to put on the record, for the...
Yeah. So there's actually another Rolling Stones connection. You made the record, and I would love to talk about it, because first of all, I really like the record, but also it's a really interesting project that's kind of like, you would think off the cuff, it's not really... How did that even work to kind of put the English music to something that's not, or English speaking, English songs to a like German legendary play? But on this Jedermann remixed soundtrack album, you recorded No Expectations and Sympathy for the Devil, along other great songs as Joe South, Games People Play, and originals.
Well, the thing is that there is this medieval play that was rewritten by later on, and this is a play that's at the festival in the classical festival in Salzburg. It's like a big hit.
Yeah.
And it's on the stairs of the dome.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's really a big thing, and they had an anniversary. I think 90 years or even 100 years of Jedermann, and they had lots of footage, and they wanted to bring out a DVD with the different actors and actresses, and it's really quite interesting. Like you get little bits and pieces from 1925 coupled with 48 or 78 or 2007. It's really interesting, and the man that did all the cutting, the film cutting, he wanted some music, and because it's a theater play, so there's no music in that play, and he had a few wishes, and like the Stones numbers were like his wishes. He said, "Can you do a version of that?" So, and that for me that was a nice surprise, because I wouldn't have touched that otherwise. But
and you were able to reimagine it your way. It's not a for no cover by any means, but
it's just sort of a track that fits the movie.
Yeah. So maybe now we can go back to your origin story, if you will. What led you to eventually a life in American roots and blues music?
Well, I suppose it was first of all the guitar, like the acoustic guitar in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and lots of folk music, blues music. The guitar had a very sort of central role, and I loved the guitar. So, and then I started playing, and I always saw the guitar as an instrument to accompany a voice, and in those days that was still very much in the core of the music. So I just came up in that and listened to lots of stuff. Like there was Radio Luxembourg that we were listening to a lot, and they had some really nice blues stuff that I didn't even know was blues at the time, but it really was something that hit, that made a big impact on me, and so I just got into that music and played it, and I didn't know that you could actually make a career out of playing music. So I got some invitations to play at little clubs, and then I found out you can actually make a little money, So I thought, well, it's a good thing. And
did you have any mentors or role models at that point, or did you kind of had to forge your own path largely?
Yeah, there wasn't. No, I didn't have teachers. Well, I had a teacher that taught me play the mandolin. Mandolin was my first instrument, but that was sort of Italian kind tunes,
Yeah.
But I got into the folky bits like Donovan and Peter, Paul and Mary and that kind of stuff. Pete Seeger, and then Big Bill Brunsey came in pretty soon. Lead Belly, Lonnie Donegan that did his skiffle versions. I mean that's sort of the kind of music I came up in.
Yeah, and I think, if I remember correctly, last night when you performed, you said Big Bill Brunsey was the first blues man you ever heard.
And I heard, yeah, right. There was Radio Luxembourg too, and I was really in awe, because it was very sort of emotional singing and beautiful guitar playing.
Yeah.
It sounded like two guitars, and only one man playing, and I thought that was really amazing.
Yeah. So some of your earliest music was released on the Flying Fish label, right?
Yes.
Which was kind of this indie label, but hugely influential. They had a really great catalog, I think. Well, how did that connection came about? Because that was based in the U.S.
Well, my first record that they brought out was called Baby Wants a Boogie, and that was like 87 or something. I knew about Flying Fish, and I got to know Bruce Kaplan, the guy that run the business, and he was more than happy to bring out my record when I played it for him. He said, well, we can do that, so it just happened that way, and for me that was a great way into the American scene.
Yeah.
And on behalf of that record, I got booked at the New Orleans Jazz Fest and the Chicago Blues Festival and stuff like that. So it was really a nice way into the scene there.
Yeah. When in your journey did you meet Cowboy Jack Clement? Was that early on or was that later?
That was quite late. I had a record called Lifeline that came out in '98, and I had some concerts in Mississippi, and we were staying in a hotel in Memphis, and we spent some time in the swimming pool, and then this man walked in, and I knew of Cowboy Jack, but my wife didn't, so she started talking to him, and it was Cowboy Jack, and I gave him the record, and a few weeks later he said, "Oh, I really love that album, and do you want to come over and do some work on it?"
Yeah.
So that's he invited us, and we got really friendly, and we visited many times, and Jack also came to one of my birthday bash concerts, the number 60.
All right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and he had quite a place too.
and it was amazing because we visited a lot, and he had this beautiful thing in his office. He invited people for jam sessions. Like they would come in at 11 in the morning or something, and just sit around and play for a couple hours. So when we came, he always got some people in, like John Prine came in, or like lots of great people.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience. And Jack was quite a character too, so he had a lot of good stories.
Yeah. You mentioned the Lifeline album, and somebody else who's on it is the Holmes Brothers, which is another connection, funny enough. And I believe that might have been the first album I ever had of yours.
Yes.
Not quite 100% sure anymore, but I believe that was it. And I'm pretty sure I bought it because of the Holmes Brothers being on it, because I became a huge Holmes Brothers fan, and I'm like, I'm just going to get everything they're on. And that introduced me to your music. So how did you meet the Holmes Brothers?
Well, they were touring Austria. I'm based in Vienna, Austria, and they were touring, and I'd met them a few times at festivals, in Scandinavia or in England. So we were sort of connected already. But when they were touring Austria, I was working on the album, and just asked them whether they were willing to join me on a couple of tunes, and they did, and they were really, really fast in the recording sessions. They were really quick, and they had this sort of amazing vocal kind of thing.
Blend,
Yeah, it's a very strange kind of blend, but great, and it fitted really well to my music, and it was a very nice experience. And then we sort of got very friendly, and they came like every year. They came to Austria, and we invited them for a big southern meal, and that was always a great thing. Great to be connected with them.
And I only really got to know Sherman well, but he's such a sweet guy, and I'm sure they all were. So I always love when it's not just the music that connects, but also there's like the human connection.
Yeah, I think that's very important in this, especially in this kind of music. It's all about, humanity, people connecting, and music connecting people, and that's a great thing. And I think in our type of music, that's often the case.
Yeah.
They're pretty friendly people, and that are in there for the music.
Absolutely. And, what's great about you is, too, you have a really strong solo, show, but you're also a frequent collaborator. And, we met, I think, Big Daddy Wilson, I saw you perform with him. So you always find really interesting collaborators, the Holmes Brothers and other great singers like, I guess you probably don't mind me saying that you borrowed them from Cooder, Bobby King, Terry Evans, and Willie Green Jr.
Yeah.
And I especially, I think with Terry Evans, you had a really special connection.
Yeah, and it lasted for until Terry died, unfortunately, in 2018. But we've been working together for about 10 years. We first met, I think, in early 90s at some festival in Winnipeg, a folk festival.
That must have been around the time they had those couple albums on
it was
Rounder.
It was Terry and Bobby that had I think they had two albums on Rounder. Yeah, and we connected, and I was working on this album Call Me, which was co-produced by Colin Linden.
Yeah, we'll talk about Colin in a minute.
And then we played at this festival in Winnipeg and met Terry and Bobby, and we thought, oh, it would be great to have these amazing voices on that album. So that's how that came about. And then they played, they recorded in LA, and I got to know Terry especially pretty well, and then we decided to do like a duo thing, just two guitars and two voices, and just go for it. And that was a great little run we had there until Terry unfortunately passed on.
And the studio album was called Delta Time?
Well, we had one called Visions.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then we did a live record, and we did Delta Time. And on Delta Time we also had Cooder helping us out, on a couple of tunes. And on Visions we had Richard Thompson coming in, play some guitar. So it was a really nice thing to do.
Yeah, and again, it's your vocal blend. Like you would think, well, maybe that wouldn't quite work, but it worked incredibly well, I think, too, because it's like, it's like, I don't know, it's just like you cannot really explain it too much, but it just worked.
Yeah,
really
well, it just worked. It just seemed to work. I mean, I'm pretty sort of a bass voice.
Yeah.
But Terry was so versatile. He could do anything. He could really soar. And
his ad-libs were so good.
Yeah, amazing. But the two voices together blend really well, and it worked great. It was always a great experience making music with Terry.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Call Me album, and you didn't just have one of the, greatest R&B vocalists on there, but you also had one of the greatest horn sections on it, and that's you basically James Brown's horn section of Fred Wesley, Pee Wee Ellis, and Maceo.
Yeah.
So is that a similar connection that you would meet him somewhere and then?
That was a different connection. At the time I had a cooperation with a German record label, Minor Music, and they did some albums with the JB horns.
Okay.
So he suggested I invite them for this album. So that's how that came about.
All right.
So I never really met the guys, but I knew their music, of course. And and this man from Minor, he sort of connected us, and we were in LA and they were in LA, so it all worked out great.
Yeah. Would you mind talking a little bit about maybe those sessions, kind of how they went? Were they all like head arrangements? Did you make it up on the fly, or were there written arrangements? How would you work with those guys?
It was pretty much, I played them the tune in the studio, and they just went for it. Yeah. I had some ideas. Maybe you could do this or you could do that, but basically, when I work with good musicians, I like to leave the space and not tell them exactly what to do, unless they're like really way out of what I'm thinking of. But usually, good people do the right thing. You know?
Yeah, you ask them to participate because of what they are able to do.
Yeah. You know their strengths, and that's what you're using basically.
Yeah.
And they came in and heard the tunes, and of course, the horns. I mean, they'd been playing together for such a long time. They knew exactly where to go.
Sure.
And Bobby and Terry the same. I mean, there's no explanation of do this and do that. They just knew what to do.
Yeah. And I always feel when I produce records, if I invite somebody in and he's not like giving me what's needed, it's not the player's fault. It's really my fault that I called the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like everybody does what they can, and I think that's why it's important for a producer to be like a good casting director and kind of know. That's a stupid word.
Yeah, I think
like kind of know what everybody can.
Yeah, I think if you want some sort of magic to happen, you just got to get the right sort of
Chemistry.
people together and get the chemistry going, and that's like very important. On the Call Me, I worked with some Canadian musicians.
Yeah, so that's my next question.
Yeah.
First, you mentioned Colin Linden, our mutual friend who helped you produce the album, fellow Nashvilleian.
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk a little bit more about how Colin entered the picture. And I imagine that he probably brought his, friend Richard Bell, Garth, Hudson, and Rick Danko.
Yeah, well, the basic thing was done with Colin and Gary Gregg. He was a Canadian drummer, great drummer, and Richard Bell. I mean, they were people that Colin brought in, and we did the basic tracks in the studio in Munich. And I had my bass playing friend John Sass on the tuba.
Yeah.
So that was like the basic tracks, and then we did some overdubs, in the States. Terry and Bobby and JB horns.
Yeah.
But working with Richard was also like a great thing. He's a beautiful player.
Yeah.
And I'd met Colin, at several folk festivals and festivals in Canada. So we sort of, got into talking about producing something together.
Sure. So were Garth and Rick, did they do those in Woodstock or?
Yeah, we did some mixing in Woodstock, and they came to the studio, and we said, okay, when you're here, do you like to do something? And Rick sang on it, and Garth played some accordion on one of the tracks. So that was a really nice surprise and a good thing.
Yeah, and on I believe at least one of your birthday shows, you also had the Blind Boys of Alabama.
Right. That came about because I organized a blues and roots night at a festival in Denmark. And we had Eric Bibb on it, and we had Big Daddy Wilson on it, and the Blind Boys of Alabama were booked at the festival anyway, so they joined us on that. And that was also a magical performance, that night. So I invited them to come to my birthday bash, and it was a great experience. Really great playing with these guys.
Yeah, I totally second that, because I just love working with them, and just kind of what we've been talking about, the great people as much as great voices and the great.
Yeah, I'm really very much a vocal kind of guy. I really like voices. I like mixing voices. So we got some beautiful voices on some of those records. Also Linda Tillery in the Cultural Heritage Choir, like a female black group. They were really great too, and I invited them for quite some stuff. So that was.
Yeah, I love them too. It's funny, I have two little kids, and we have children's music playing at the house all the time.
Yeah.
And there's records with them and Taj Mahal and Eric Bibb is on some of them too. And there's like some of the music I'm listening to the most at the moment are those people. It's a
Yeah.
little bit different material, but it's the same grooves and the same vibes.
Yeah. And it's all sort of it has some magic, and it's all sort of friendly kind of music too. But voices are really can hit you, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm really like, especially that record to the Lifeline, where I had the Holmes Brothers and Linda Tillery in her group, but also that was my first connection with the guys I'm still playing with, a vocal group from Zimbabwe, in Zingisi. They are on that album.
Yeah,
too.
they're incredible. Also
Yeah.
percussion stuff, because when I came to see your birthday show, they were part of that too.
Yeah. They usually are. I play another show like next week with them. So we play quite a bit, and it's sort of a mix of my sort of bluesy sound and their African attitude, which is a nice angle,
Absolutely. So, I started discovering your music, long time ago now, but I didn't get to see you live till just a few years ago, and you were performing with Big Daddy Wilson, which, funny enough, he made a record with some of my friends, not in Muscle Shoals really, but kind of close. So there's another connection. So how did you and him connect and make a duo? I guess I would imagine that it had something to do with a void that Terry Evans maybe left.
Well, yeah. The thing with Terry, of course, had disappeared when Terry died. But I met Wilson at several festivals in Europe, especially. And I've been doing this for quite a long time, and Wilson was sort of fairly new to it. And he told me that he went to these clubs and they were playing my music, and he said, "Oh, this is the guy I want to do something with," So when we then met at some festivals, we just talked together and said, "Well, we could give it a try. I play the strings and you do the percussion and the singing and just blend the voices," and it worked out great. We did some really nice tours and one album too called Payday.
Yeah, and the tour, promoting that album was just really good. I just, not just myself who really loves, that particular kind of music, but I looked into the audience and people had tears into their, and I mean it in the best kind of way. They were just really touched by it, and I don't know if I've ever seen that just as much, because literally all these people, they were just like almost had a not almost really had a spiritual
sometimes it was
connection.
it was a bit like a sermon,
Yeah.
like and a spiritual thing, and we played quite a few blues festivals too, and we were sort of a quiet acoustic act between pretty noisy bands, but it also always worked great. I mean, people just quietened down and listened and got really involved, and I think that's if music can transport that's a great thing, and we really enjoyed singing together too.
Yeah, and I certainly enjoyed it too. Now, you just played a gig in Switzerland at Baden Blues Festival. What's next for you?
The next one is I take the night train back from the Swiss border to Vienna. I'm based in Vienna, and the next gig is with my band that includes the three guys from Zimbabwe and a wonderful Austrian piano player, and me on the guitars and vocals.
Yeah.
So we play quite a bit, and that's the next gig. That's next week.
And do you have any project on the horizon, like another record or anything else you would like to talk about?
Not really at the moment. I mean, I have something in maybe coming up, but that's probably a little too early to convey
Sure, and I don't want to put the pressure on you either.
But that's kind of a Swiss connection, but it could be a nice thing. I think it will be.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll all find out when it's when it's ready to roll. But I would certainly like to, talk to you for the friendship and in general, and this past hour here talking to me for my podcast. I don't take it for granted, and I hope not that you need it, but I hope there may be even a few people out of my circle, may get more familiar with your music by listening to it. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here and talk to you, and good knowing you too, and like we're kindred spirits, I suppose, like into the music, connecting people with music, which is a great thing. So I wish you the best of luck with your work too.
Thank you. Same here. A safe drive/ride back home to Vienna, and then onwards and upwards from there.
All right.
Thank you so
much. Thank you.
Vielen Dank. And that was my conversation with the magnificent Hans Theessink. Now, if you're familiar with Hans' music, you know how great it is. And if you're not, I would like to encourage you to check it out wherever you listen to music. You can also purchase his releases at his website at www.theessink.com, which is spelled Theessink. Hans has a few more dates coming up, including August 29 at Thunder Festival in Denmark, and then a tour of Austria at the end of September into October. So if you're in his vicinity, make sure to check him out. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to check out some of our past episodes, including Masters of the Blues, along musicians, producers, and songwriters associated with Nashville and Muscle Shoals, some of the great and soulful cats behind the music we so dearly love. Next week's episode is with the great Holger Peterson, who's a Canadian blues and roots music institution, as founder of Stony Plain Records, producer of many, many great records, and a radio disc jockey at CBC Radio and CKUA Radio with two long-running blues shows, and he's just one of the most beloved figures in blues and roots music worldwide. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to catch you again next week at the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. Crazy Chester Radio Hour was created and produced by me, Andreas Werner, producer, songwriter, composer with a Muscle Shoals heart. The theme song is performed by Jimmy Hall of Wet Willie and the Funky Chester Rhythm Section. It was recorded at Creative Workshop Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. You can find out more about the podcast and myself at crazychesterrecords.com or on Instagram at crazychesterrecords.